quite a while, but I'm happy to have the Deputy Chief Sec with me yet again. Great to see you. I look forward to our discussion this morning.
Thank you. Good being here as well. It has been a while, hasn't it? We need to do this often.
But I know you're busy. I know, obviously, you're busy to the governance of Tobago, and more so, monitoring the very important conversation. I recognize lots of tongue hall happening. Of course, this is under the umbrella of the PNM. They're bringing people out to have that autonomy discussion. I know you, via your office, also getting involved in the discussion. I want to find out why now. I realize there is this particular momentum and the conversation is back in a serious way in the public domain. The timing is quite interesting. Could you elaborate?
The timing is very interesting, and I'm glad you're the one who raised it, because this Tobago autonomy thing is not a new thing. It's one that we've been talking about for decades. As a matter of fact, the Tobago House of Assembly came as a result of conversations about Tobago autonomy in 1977, as a matter of fact, with A.N.R. Robinson back then. Coincidentally, the PNM usually brings it up around election time. So yes, they are now running to have these autonomy conversations simply because we envision that a local general election is going to happen sometime soon. But for us, it is one that has been a critical issue from the get-go. As a matter of fact, excuse me, the last time we had conversations about this was really just right after the elections in 2021, in that lull period, where we were talking about the bills that the Prime Minister has suddenly indicated that he wants to take back to the Parliament, and he wants to pass the bills that are in the Parliament just as they are. When in fact, way back then, we said to him, all of Tobago said to him, the bills are relatively decent, but there are a few things that we need to be tweaked before we go with them. And those are the conversations we are hoping that people would have right now. So I am really, really happy to be on with you to discuss some of those things that we need tweaked just a little bit.
Well, I'm watching Shamfa Kojo Lewis would have mentioned recently, and she stressed to the people of Tobago, she said that people could support the bill and still vote for their preferred parties. She went on to describe and say that the bills were not about politics, but the dreams and aspirations of Tobagonians. What's your reaction to that?
So yes, she is right. The bills should be about the dreams and aspirations of Tobagonians. So let me tell you one of the biggest dreams and aspirations of Tobagonians. We have always wanted a clear definition in our laws that says this is what Tobago is and this is what Trinidad is, and this is what the country known as Trinidad and Tobago is. And let me be clear, we would like to maintain the country known as Trinidad and Tobago because I honestly believe this is the greatest country on earth. The two islands together. So let's be very, very clear about that. We are not talking about separating. We are not talking about going our separate ways.
Yeah, because, there are people who hear autonomy and they think of independence. They're thinking Tobago wants their own customs, their own police force, their own prime minister, president. We have to play Tobago in a World Cup qualifier. That's what some people, people are thinking that, that's where it will reach to.
No, but that is not where we wanted to reach, and that's why we need to have these clear and honest conversations. So let me use an example that has nothing to do with politics, but here we are. If we say that you and I have 10 mangoes, right? We have 10 mangoes. And I then say, there's a document that says, JW, you have 3 mangoes. There's an expectation that the other 7 mangoes would be who? Would be mine. Because together, the 3 plus 7 makes 10. One of the things that Tobagonians have always wanted is for us to have a definition that says the island of Tobago is the island plus, whatever these nautical miles. The island of Trinidad is the island plus the nautical miles. And all of the water and all of the resources in the water that is surrounding the islands of Trinidad and Tobago in this country known as Trinidad and Tobago is really one that is divided among us in an equitable way, where the resources are divided among us in an equitable way. Because JW, I'm sure that you will quickly recognize that the same way they talk about us separating, the question about resources always comes up, and the question about whether Tobago does contribute anything to Trinidad and Tobago always comes up. And in fact, we know that there are quite a number of the oil and gas resources that are in what would be classified as quote unquote Tobago water if we were separated. So we are contributing to this, the pulse of Trinidad and Tobago. When you look at the Calypso field and when you look at Block 22 and, those areas, those are areas that would be classified as being in quote unquote Tobago waters. So we really just want to have an honest conversation about what Tobago really contributes to this wonderful country known as Trinidad and Tobago, so that we can have sharing of the resources in a way that's equitable. Remember, I didn't say equal, but equitable, and in a way that allows both islands to be seen as brother and sister, both islands to be seen as equal members of Trinidad and Tobago, so that we could develop equitably. And that is really all that we're asking for, an opportunity to develop equitably.
Yeah, and of course, that is a fair request. But I want to ask, and this is a genuine question, this is more so to deal with the personalities who position themselves to be leaders. So we have seen in the past, in terms of central government, two men who were born and raised in Tobago becoming Prime Minister, the late A.N.R. Robinson, and now we have Dr. Rowley at the helm, at the wheel. I was born in San Fernando, spent my formative years in Erie, spent my life in Trinidad. If I come to Tobago and live for 5 years, 10 years, could I put myself in the hat to run for THA office? Would I even be considered under THA order? Could I win?
Of course, man. That is because there are residents, meaning you need to be resident in the area for a certain amount of time, and you are a citizen of Trinidad and Tobago, which means that there is nothing that prevents you from coming to Tobago, living here, recognizing that the Tobago struggle is a pretty intense one, and wanting to be a part of that. There's nothing wrong with you.
Because I've heard on the ground that once you're born in Trinidad, you're almost disqualified. You're not, quote unquote, a wee boy. That's what I've heard, Dr. Israel.
So let me tell you why. Let me go back to the resources issue and why this is kind of critical for us. During the budget, we heard about a major hotel in Trinidad that is being refurbished this fiscal, and the figure that is being used to refurbish the hotel is about 400 million. Remember that?
Yes, I remember. Yes.
Right. Now, when you look at the resources that are allotted to Tobago, the whole island of Tobago, to develop Tobago, you know how much those resources are, because we're talking about the development money, not the recurrent, not the money that we pay salaries and that kind of stuff within the THA, but the whole island, to develop the whole island. We were allocated about 200 million. So let's think about this. 400 million is being used to develop a single hotel, right? But we are allocating 200 million to develop the whole island, everything that we need on the island to be developed.
The math's not maths in there at all.
It not mattering at all. When you think about, for example, the zoo that was used 50-something million to refurbish the zoo in Port of Spain there, and to refurbish the whole island of Tobago, we are talking about 200 million. And it is because we, especially me as Deputy Chief Secretary for Health, have to do those kinds of maths in every single day, that we are saying, no, let us rethink this relationship that we are having. Let us think about how we share the resources within this entity known as Trinidad and Tobago, so that Tobago can contribute, so that Tobago can develop in a way that makes it part of Trinidad and Tobago and helps to develop Trinidad and Tobago. That's where the conversation is.
What are some of the definite changes, or at least amendments, you want to see via the bill? What will make sense for Tobago right now?
Right, certainly. So we just simply want, and this might be just a pet peeve of ours, we just want a line that says that the island of Tobago and the island of Trinidad are equal. That is all. Equity of status. That Trinidad and Tobago are equal, because honestly, we sometimes feel very much like if we are not equals. So that is one that is really, really important. Another one is the ability to make laws for all of the areas that are already under the jurisdiction of the Tobago House of Assembly now. Currently, the Tobago House of Assembly has policy-making ability over 33 areas. The new bill has actually reduced some of those areas, and we think that is going in the wrong direction. Another quick thing that we need fixed is, again, going back to the resource sharing. There is a committee that the bill is recommending that we come together to determine whenever we need to do these resource sharing conversations. The original bills that we were talking about many years ago, mind you, we have had several iterations of bills. The bills that we were talking about before included this entity being a very impartial one where the president, for example, would pick the chair. There would be 2 representatives from the Tobago House of Assembly, 2 representatives from the government of Trinidad and Tobago. Right now, the way the bill is written, that entity is going to be chaired by the Minister of Finance and is going to have 3 members from the government and 2 members from the Tobago House of Assembly and chaired by the Minister of Finance. That automatically shows that it's not an impartial committee to come together to have us have these conversations. So it's little things like that that we're talking about, that we're saying the bills are decent, but there are a couple little things that we need tweaked. And if we get those things tweaked, we'll be good to go. We'll be really, really happy with going forward, with continuing on this journey with this country known as Trinidad and Tobago.
Well said. Let me ask, I think the PNM, they've embarked on that public consultation, education campaign. Are you going to do the same to reach and hit the ground and, again, advance the conversation?
So we have been doing that, as a matter of fact, it is, again, very hypocritical. The fact that you are suddenly seeing this as a big thing shows the hypocrisy of the organization when it comes to these things. Because the bill that I am referring to, that included some of the things that we thought were really important and were good, were actually bills that Mr. Orville London, who was then the Chief Secretary of the Tobago House of Assembly, sent to Trinidad just before he demitted office as Chief Secretary. The bills that I am referring to that includes these things that we want change are actually the bills that the now Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago laid in Parliament in 2018. Here the data talking about it. 2018, that bill was laid there with those things. But somehow between then and now, we recognize that there were a couple little shifting in the words and a couple little tweaking in a direction that in our mind is not going in the correct direction. So the fact that they are now on this campaign for autonomy, again, goes back to having us, the average Tobagonian, thinking that this only becomes a champion issue for them around election time. And we would really prefer to not have it be a political football again, because honestly, with the man on the ground, that is how it feels, honestly.
I want to ask you really quick. It's really one kind of off topic, but I wanted to really get your perspective. And this is to do with the Tobago tourism product. I know you mentioned more is needed for the development of not only Tobago, but I would imagine the product. What's the real, I guess, perspective as to Tobago's tourism product? Is it going to be this grassroots, rootsy ecotourism kind of flavor that we enjoy right now? Or is there a push to make Tobago more premium to kind of match the, let's say, Bahamas model, the all-inclusive Antigua model? Is there consultation with the people as to what the actual product is in Tobago?
Certainly. So the tourism model in Tobago is one that is varied. If you go to Castara, for example, you have a live-in, you come into the village and you are a part of the village kind of thing. But we are also trying to build out the different festivals that bring people to the island. So, for example, one of the things we were pushing for, or have been pushing for, is, for example, the Tobago Carnival, which is another reason to come to the island. You come, there are hotels there are high-end hotels, but they are the bed and breakfast that you need to be a part of. But then again, we have to go back to critical things. The idea of getting people to Tobago, we know that is one of the most difficult things ever. Us having, for example, a say in what Caribbean Airlines does is another one of the areas that we're talking about. Right now, we have absolutely no say in what Caribbean Airlines does. And we see time and time again, whenever there's an issue that relates to people coming to the island, there are always complaints. You can't find tickets, you can't get tickets, you cannot get to the island. So we could have the best product ever. If you can't get to the the island to enjoy it, then it doesn't matter. And again, it goes back to the $200 million to develop all of these things that we're talking about. Again, compared to the $400 million that is being used to develop a single tourism plant on the island of Trinidad.
Dr. Faith, as always, sincere thanks. It's been quite a while, but I'm happy we were able to reconnect. And if we don't talk before the end of calendar year 2024, the best going into 2025.
Thank you, and same to you, my dear.
That's right. Deputy Chief Sec there out of Tobago. Of course, Dr. Faith B. Israel touching base and telling us in real time what's happening there on